Welcome to another exciting edition of the Big Ten Sports Podcast. I am your co-host, Andrew Wade, and I'm joined here by Ryan Thielen. And we are about 2 weeks behind. Last week, we weren't able to jump on the podcast. We had some scheduling conflicts. For those of you listening to this may not know, Ryan is incredibly busy, and so am I. I would venture out to say that, Ryan, you and I are probably the busiest we have ever been since we've known each other. And unfortunately, that coincides at the exact same time while we're trying to have this awesome podcast.
We knew that going in because especially difficult in the worst part is the game. But now Nebraska's on a win streak, so this might be even better.
Yeah, I mean, your phone cut out there a little bit, but I got the gist that Nebraska was on a win streak, that we kind of knew we were busy going in, and you're excited for this podcast too.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Well, we are doing this kind of an interesting time. We'll get this posted later today. We're going to be going through our general segments. We're going to talk a little bit about the betting that we did last week, despite not having the show. We did make bets on, via text. We're going to talk about the highlights from last week, and then we're going to skip most of our main segments, but we will be touching on the most important one, and you'll find that out what that one is later. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with the games for the week. So to jumpstart us with the betting, Ryan and I both went 3-1 on the week. My wins were Iowa, Northwestern, and Maryland, and my loss was Purdue. Ryan's big loss was Wisconsin, and his wins were Iowa, Michigan State, and Maryland. Overall, I have a 4-game lead over Ryan. I am 41-31, and Ryan is 37-35. And as we continue to go through this season, I've begun realizing I am actually good at betting. I should be making bets at Vegas, and I'm better than you, and I don't know why I listen to you.
41-31 is actually, I'll start to give you credit if you can continue this. I'm also finally back in the winning column, so I'm 2 games over 500 on the season now. So but yeah, 41-31 is pretty good. So good job.
Thank you. I will just say I'm pretty proud of the Northwestern call over Wisconsin. God, I hate Northwestern.
That was another one that you said you called, even though you didn't, and it happened.
Yeah, it worked out well. So maybe I just bet with vengeance.
It did work out well.
But now that so jumping into highlights, we can touch a little bit on that. The Wisconsin loss to Northwestern, though, creates kind of an interesting conundrum within the Big Ten West, especially with Iowa losing a terrible game to Penn State by 6 points. Now we essentially have it setting up where we might have a 3-way tie. Northwestern's currently in the lead of the Big Ten West with a 5-1 record. Wisconsin has 2 losses, Iowa has 2 losses, and Purdue has 2 losses. So if Iowa beats Purdue, that basically eliminates Purdue from that race. But if Wisconsin wins out and Iowa beats Northwestern in a few weeks, that creates an interesting 3-way tie, which would, I think, employ some interesting scenarios. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this. When I looked at the Big Ten Conference tiebreakers, it essentially says, look at your division record. Then it looks at your head-to-head. Each team beat each other. So then it goes down and it says, looks at your record. And it doesn't say overall record. It doesn't say conference record. It doesn't say Big Ten West record. It just says record. And if we're to go by just record, Iowa would win that tiebreaker.
This is the same that happened. This happened in the East a couple. There's a 3-way tie in, I think, Ohio.
Hey, Ryan, you just cut out entirely.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. I don't know what's going on. I think what I was saying is I think it's a similar in the East a couple of years ago, right? When Penn State was, I think, either second or third in the polls, but somehow had the tiebreaker over. It was Ohio State, and I think it might have been Michigan that year. But yeah, I don't know. I think what you can be confident about is that I think Wisconsin's going to lose at least one more game. They're at Penn State this year, and we know what Purdue can do at home. Northwestern pretty much just probably will struggle with, but you never know with Northwestern. I mean, they barely beat Rutgers, and Nebraska took them to overtime. um, a difficult schedule at all. So I think if they beat Northwestern, it probably is theirs. And I mean, obviously that's down to Wisconsin losing one more game. But if Northwestern wins this division, it's understand it because they're not a good team.
Yeah, it's frustrating that they are 5-1 in the Big Ten, and it also sucks that they beat Purdue when David Blah wasn't the starting quarterback. So they beat Purdue at an opportune time where Purdue wasn't rolling like they are now. I would say rolling in a relative sense, but they got lucky. They got Purdue early in the season, got that win out of the way, and weirdly enough, they're sitting here at first in the West. But yeah, I agree. If Iowa can beat Purdue this week and beat Northwestern, and I do think Wisconsin loses at Penn State, I think this should be an okay scenario, and Iowa is going to ultimately win the West. So kind of moving on.
Iowa, though, without – do you remember when you said Nate?
So you just cut out there again, but I think you're making fun of the fact that I said Nate Stanley was a dark horse Heisman candidate. And
Yep.
yes, I realized
that was dumb.
The
that was
insanity of that after watching the Penn State game. It got to the point where
I also like that you just breezed past that Penn State game.
Because it wasn't worth talking about. It was incredibly frustrating. At one point, Penn State had a 96% chance of winning the game when they had the ball on the Iowa 10. And then it somehow, despite Nate Stanley attempting to sabotage the game, it felt like, Iowa actually had the best chance of winning like 5 minutes left in the game before he threw an inopportune interception at the goal line. Why they didn't run that ball, I don't know. Also, they talked about I saw some reports on that, he tried changing the play, and basically Fant was supposed to be a decoy, and they were supposed to drop that off to McKee Sargent. Unfortunately, despite the fact that, Fant didn't really do the decoy thing very well because he didn't realize the play was going, Stanley also misfired that ball by about three yards from the running back anyways. So regardless of the fact that Fant didn't run the route, Stanley also overthrew the guy by 3 yards, and obviously he was going to be picked off. So I'm a little heated. I want to go on to the next games and focus on next week. So moving on, Michigan State beat Purdue. I don't know how you feel, but this Michigan State team doesn't look good. They win ugly. Their team isn't great, but they beat Purdue. They were able to somehow bottle up Rondell Moore. They forced David Blah into 3 interceptions, which is one more than he had all season. And for some reason, Purdue decided to not give the ball to DJ Knox. He only had 7 carries in the game. So I don't know what the hell was up with that. He was averaging like 7 or 8 yards per carry, but Michigan State got a W.
Part of that rush defense in the nation. So I think Purdue probably game planned around that, and Michigan State probably game planned for Purdue to do that, and it worked. So also, I mean, Purdue, yeah, they had a huge win, but you knew it was going to stop at some point, right? They started 3-0, won their 0-3, won their next 4, and then going to Michigan State after being that high, after beating Ohio State, you kind of figured something was going to happen.
That's fair. I understand that Michigan State's rushing defense is technically the best in the nation, but they've struggled against good players. I think they allowed Miles Sanders to go off for 160 yards on like 17 carries. DJ Knox was averaging 7-8 yards per carry on his 7 carries for that game. And there's another running back. I can't remember who it was they faced, but they allowed another big game by another Big Ten running back. Karan Higgins. So I don't know, man. Michigan State's run defense is flaky to me. I think they're solid, but they're nothing special. If there's talent on there, they can be overran.
Well, Purdue didn't do that.
That's fair. Well, moving on, Maryland blew out Illinois 63-33. I don't understand how Maryland their offense is weird, man. Like they run a lot of motions, a lot of kind of deceptive type plays, but they obviously destroyed Illinois. And I think the big story here is Maryland attempted to reinstate DJ Durkin. He just got fired today. This is kind of a huge. I think this would be kind of a huge drama thing over the program that's surprisingly done pretty well in the wake of a loss of a teammate. Having this constant commotion and disturbance, I don't think will be good for the team going forward.
No, it probably won't, but I do think Maryland ultimately made the right call. I think what's tough about these situations, especially with like the Durkin situation, is you don't know how much involvement he had personally, but you know what, he's in charge of the program, so it happened on his watch. I don't understand how you can even come close to reinstating that guy. Um, Good to see that they did make the U-turn, but it had to just be a financial decision for them to reinstate him in the first place, and that's kind of trash. So, um, yeah, I mean it's a lot for the program, and we'll see how they rebound this week.
Yeah, Maryland just making us all question why is Maryland and Rutgers in the Big Ten? And if you
That's
didn't
been
see
a
it,
question forever.
yeah, well, I mean, like, and then I don't know if you saw, but the Rutgers linebacker, I can't remember his name because it doesn't matter. We don't need to talk about it because he doesn't deserve the notoriety. But he was arrested on attempted murder plot. So just
Yeah, so I will say for Rutgers, like it's a good thing they do suck because if that happened at like LSU or Michigan or Ohio State, like that would be all over the news. But most people probably don't even know that it was a thing
yeah,
because Rutgers is that bad.
they're so bad. And what I do want to get to that in a little bit because God, their interception statistics are fantastic. But before we do that, Minnesota finally um, got a W this week as they beat Indiana, and I would say Indiana's not a bad team. Good win for Minnesota. They beat them 38-31 on Friday night. Oddly enough, after starting 3-0, they have lost four straight games. This was kind of a do or die situation for their season. They still have an opportunity to be bowl eligible, but I think weirdly enough, there's kind of a big gap between the top tier teams in the Big Ten and any team below that, really. And Maryland or Minnesota, unfortunately, falls in that category of anything below that. They're not a bad team,
No,
but they just can't beat the good teams in the Big Ten.
no, but you know what wouldn't surprise me is if Minnesota ended up being one of the teams at Northwestern. Like I think they play the second to last week of the season, and I mean if Northwestern beats Iowa, it doesn't matter. But I wouldn't be surprised watching Minnesota play if they beat Northwestern.
It's a sneaky game
Yep.
for Northwestern. Like you said, Northwestern plays down to. Let me rephrase that. Northwestern plays up to its competition, and against bad teams, they play like they normally should play. So, speaking of bad teams, Nebraska beat Bethune Cookman 45-9, and they are on a 2-game winning streak. The cold frost has
Yep.
ended. The sun is shining, and it will likely, wrap back up into the clouds after this week. But hey, Nebraska's on a 2-game winning streak, and they're technically still bowl eligible.
Eligible, but they have a chance to become bowl eligible. The biggest problem is they have to play Ohio State this week. We'll get to that, but yeah, it's good. It's good that we're finally winning. The Bethune Cookman game was over at halftime. Saw a lot of the backups play in the second half, and we're moving up. So we win against Ohio State, we might never lose again.
Question for you. I mean, that's ridiculous. But question for you: do you think if Bethune Cookman was the game, like had it been the first game of the season, do you think this
Yep.
season is different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
Bethune Cookman was their schedule after Akron didn't play, so they wouldn't have even been on. They wouldn't have not been canceled.
Yeah. I
However,
mean,
it's good to
yeah.
wonder. I think you start with a game like that and you get the win out of the way, then they probably win a couple more games.
Yep. Unfortunately, we're looking at one of the worst seasons in Nebraska history. Moving on to our segments. We are, like I said, we're canceling two of them for today. We're going to cancel mascots and we're going to cancel the college game, which is good because I've been terrible at that. But we're definitely going to be talking about Kansas because Kansas has 3 wins.
Yeah,
Let's just soak that in.
you
Three
still you
wins.
still need them to get three more. They're terrible.
They are closer than they were
I
last
think
week.
yeah, maybe the saddest part is how disappointing TCU's been this season. Kind of makes you question, if Ohio State's ever going to beat anybody decent because that was supposed to be their marquee win. But yes, Kansas did beat TCU. They still have three more games for you to win that bet, and that's not going to happen.
I will say, unfortunately, although I want Kansas to win, so I win all these bets against Iowa State. If Iowa State beats Kansas, that's only good for Iowa because Iowa State surprisingly made the CFP rankings at 24. So that looks good for Iowa to have that win on their schedule. So I think it's a win-win
Kansas has
situation for
this
me. If
week.
Iowa State loses, great. Kansas has 4 wins. If Iowa State wins, fantastic. Iowa's win looks better.
Yeah, Iowa State's going to beat them.
What was that?
Iowa State's going to win.
Yeah,
So
Brock Purdy's
that
good,
one
man.
off. Yeah.
All right, so jumping into our last segment of the games for this week, we have a good slate, and it's a fun slate, man. There's a couple of ranked teams playing, some good games in general, and especially with the CFP rankings coming out, there's a lot more at stake now. Now that we kind of have a feeling for where the Big Ten has kind of shook out, we have Michigan at 5. I want to say Ohio State at 10, Penn State at maybe 14, Iowa at 16. So definitely some big things popping for the Big Ten right now in the CFP battle. And the first game we have on our slate is Rutgers at Wisconsin, going on at 11 a.m. Central Time on the Big Ten Network. I think this game is obviously going to be won by Wisconsin, but it's a matter of can they cover that 28.5-point spread. The couple things about Rutgers, they suck. They're terrible. Their starting quarterback, Arthur Sitkowski, has thrown 3 touchdowns and thrown 15 interceptions. That's historically bad. Maybe I'll do some research for next week and see if there's ever been a quarterback that's had that bad of a season, because that is atrocious.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I feel bad for the guy because I don't think it's his fault, but I mean, at some point, it's his fault. I think the big thing here is after their loss last week, when now their season is essentially over. I know there's crazy scenarios where they can still win the Big Ten West, but I mean, this is a team that had not just a national championship ambitions before the season. Those are the John Hill 100 yards last week, had a couple of fumbles. I think he's going to come back pretty big this week, and then Hornibrook, I think, going to be back under center at cornerback or quarterback. I know Cohn did all right last week, but Hornibrook is the guy despite his flaws. And I think the fun thing with Hornibrook is that he has a chance, probably not this season, but next season, to become Wisconsin's all-time touchdown leader. He only needs 14 more touchdowns to be the all-time leader.
Interesting.
It's a thing. Yeah. So for all the stick that he gave, I don't know if that says more about Wisconsin's former quarterback, changing offense, or Alex Hornibrook, but I think Wisconsin's the type of team under Dinkris that will show up this week. So I'm going to take Wisconsin. Just there's too much going on, and they're too bad of a football team.
Yeah, I'm taking Wisconsin as well, for all the reasons you alluded to. And Rutgers sucks. Yep. The Michigan State and Maryland game is going to be interesting. I think, again, we talked a little bit about Michigan State's run defense. It is ranked. It's number 1 in the nation, but I also think it's a lot worse than the ranking says. Every week I check because the last couple of weeks they've had bad weeks, and somehow they still maintain the number 1 ranking. So interesting stuff there. They're facing a Maryland team that is outstanding at running the ball. Last week they had 431 yards, albeit against Illinois, but still 431 yards on the ground is impressive. I will say they got bottled up against Iowa. So if Michigan State can stay true and not be deceived, I guess, by the different motions and types of running plays that Maryland is doing, I think Michigan State could have a good day stopping the run. Also interesting to see Rocky Lombardi, the Michigan State freshman quarterback, had a fantastic performance with Brian Lewerke out. Lewerke's kind of had a rough season this year, especially coming in. He was kind of a sleeper prospect that someone could potentially rise in the draft, especially with a weak quarterback class. He has not done that. But freshman Rocky Lombardi, Ryan, do you know where he's from?
From Iowa.
He is from Des Moines, Iowa. That is right. So good old Iowa boy. You always got to root for those people. And because of that, Maryland is actually Michigan State is favored by 1.5, and I'm taking Michigan State to win by more than 1.5 on the back of Rocky Lombardi. And what a football name that is.
Pretty strong football game. Most of what you said, I know you say Maryland's great at running. I think they're a country in rushing, but I mean, I think you're underrating Michigan State's rush defense. They're giving up less than 80 yards a game, which is absurd.
Dude, they can't stop anyone good.
Okay. don't even know what to say to that because I don't have all the numbers in front. I'm going to check that after this, but I think there's too much going on at Maryland right now. So I'm going to go with Michigan State as well.
Sounds good. I think that was the first time I actually just shut you up, though. I feel pretty good about that because I have done the numbers because I keep trying to compare Iowa and Michigan State's run defenses, and Michigan State sucks, man. I'm just gonna call it right now.
Yeah, Michigan does not suck. I'm halfway.
I have no idea what you said there, but that's okay because it was probably wrong. Nebraska is taking on number 8 Ohio State. That's going to be shown on Fox, and that is not going to be a very noteworthy game. Somehow, Ohio State's only favored by 18.5 here, and I know you have some statistics you want to talk about on here. Um, okay, hold on. Do you just want to cut it?
Yeah, dude, if you can't hear like 4 or 5 different times of what I'm talking about, then it's gonna be terrible.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just give you a call on your cell phone.
Okay.